Fall State and Hots, pretty unique events, and training for them is totally different than it would be for anything else you would do. So, hey, what works for me typically will work for everybody, but there are differences, and we are all an experiment of N1, which means we're an experiment of ourselves. There's only one of us, and we're all unique individuals, so you got to be ready to experiment with your own training and see what works for you. But I will put this out there and kind of let you know what you're going to need, and then go from there. You've not followed me, which is fine. I have done 3 of these journey, quote-unquote journey runs, long races. I have, plus the standard 50, 100 milers, but I have, Vol State was my first one, 500K, and I didn't know what I was doing, learned a bunch, and all that kind of things. Completed it in 5 days and 18 hours, which my only goal going into that was to finish it. And then I hit the highest thing was to go sub 6, which I did. So like it could have gone better, but it went exceptionally well for the first time. That was Vol State 2022. In 2023, I decided to do Hots, and I failed at it, to be honest. I made it 220 miles. I got a blister on my little toe, and when I peeled my socks off, it took all the skin off my little toe, and I was kind of afraid that I'd get an infection in there because I still had a good amount of miles to go. So I abandoned, just because I kind of wanted my toe and not have to deal with that. Probably could have finished it, but it wasn't worth the risk in my mind. But like all things, I learned stuff there too. But I did fail at it, but it was going well until that point. And this year, 2024, soon to be last year, I did Hots again. And it was the longest one ever, and finishing rate was 30%. You have to remember the people doing Hots are all veterans. I think there were 2 guys that never done one of those journey style races before, so these are all experienced people. I finished 4th, 6 days, 20 hours. I think the winner was 6 days, 7 or 8 hours. I don't remember exactly. Probably one of the best runs I've ever put together. So, again, a lot of that was experience. Just knowing things and understanding myself and understanding what I was facing. Training. I think before you even think about training, you need to kind of think about gear and what you're going to use. So, first thing I would choose is shoes. So I've used 3 different kinds of shoes on these. First time in Vol State, I used Torn Plushes, thinking that the extra foam, the extra cushiness would be good. Yeah, about 200 miles in, maybe even before 200 miles in, they tore up. The rubber come off, and I was running it on pretty much foam. So, yeah, that wasn't the best choice. 2023, that Hots I ran with Ultra Escalantes. And like I said, 220, 240, I abandoned out. But even then, they had worn through the rubber, and I was wearing into the sole on those. So, again, learned something, and changed my process the next time. Well, Hots 2024, I tried a different shoe. I went to the Ultra Lone Peaks. Yeah, that is a trail shoe. And that race was 384 miles. And that actually held up fairly well. I mean, the shoe was totally ruined, but for 384 miles, it did pretty well. Whatever you do on the shoe front, I would buy, when you get 2-3 months out, maybe 4, but somewhere in there, buy 2 pair of the same shoe. One shoe you're going to train in continuously, and the other you're going to wear just a couple of times to make sure there's no issues with it. Obviously, the one you're training in is just that, training shoe. The one you're not is your race shoe, because I promise you, if you put too many miles on it, the shoe's going to wear out. Next on the list, shorts. If you watched my pack video, you know I like compression shorts. Why? Because they don't chafe. Regular shorts chafe. And I've seen plenty of people who had to cut the liners out of their regular shorts, or cut the bottom out of their shorts because they were chafing so bad in those areas that they're walking down the road with no bottom in their shorts out there for the world to see. So I highly recommend compression shorts, and if you're a lady, a little bit longer compression shorts, because chafing is a thing, and I've seen it take people out. As all have seen my pack video, you know I like the button-up shirts. There's reasons for that. The collar stops the pack from rubbing on your neck, because we all know that happens occasionally, and trust me, you don't want any chafing. Also, you can unbutton buttons to get more airflow, or button them up to be warmer, so it's very useful. I mean, it's a hot day, so I'll have 2 or 3 buttons on the bottom and 1 on top unbuttoned, so I've only got a couple buttons, and I'm getting a lot of airflow through there, so it's butt covered so I don't get burnt. So that's why. Hats, I have kind of changed my mind on that. I've always worn a ball cap style hat, and my ears and face have gotten so burnt the last couple times that I bought a wide rimmed hat that has mesh here to cool. Use it on a couple longer runs, and it's been great. So I'm going to try that next time, but I would definitely get you something with a little more facial coverage, because you're going to catch sun from all different angles. Sunglasses, if you wear them, I would go with a really cheap pair that you get at a convenience store, because you're probably going to scratch the living crap out of them, because this stuff gets bounced around out there. Other things that you might want to consider, arm sleeves. I've used them and not used them. I'm kind of up in the air. I know some people swear by them. It just depends. If it's not super humid, I think they're great, but when it's humid, they just feel like 2 wet pieces of cloth on my arms and drives me nuts. That's my personal thing. Socks, you know, I use Najinji sock liners and regular Najinji socks. They sell the sock liner and sock. I've used that last time and it worked well, but I've also bought the sock liner in a really thin pair and used that, and it's worked well too. I highly recommend those. And also just keeping your feet covered in Desitin a lot. Stopping every 6-7 hours and doing that. If it rains, more often than not. But those are the things in gear I think you need. I know some people use trekking poles. I have not. I just can't bring myself to carrying those, because whatever you take, you got to carry, and I just can't do it. It's just too much. That and I would probably leave them someplace, and there's been plenty of people that have left them. All right, so into the nitty-gritties of the training. So I do have a video up on that I used at Tunnel Hill on how I ran that. I ran 22 hours and 40 minutes there, and I walked over 80% of that, or over 70% of that race, excuse me. Over 70% of that race I walked, and I finished in 22 hours. So I used much the same principle for training for HOTS this year in 2024, and it went well. Like at 200 and 300 miles, I was still running, albeit not a ton, but I could just jump into running. Now, I was keeping it short and sweet, not letting my heart rate get up, but a walk-run strategy really works well, especially for training.
And I promise you, in these races, you're going to walk a lot. So you need to train it a lot. When I started, I think I started full on training for HOTS this year in November last year. And I started with 1 minute of walking and 8.5 minutes, or excuse me, 1 minute of running, 8.5 minutes of walking. So, and then I would just advance that. Roughly every 2 or 3 weeks, I move my running up to where I'm at right now. I'm running 2 minutes and 40 seconds and walking 8:30. That's a really slow go, but you got to keep in mind that adding 5 seconds on a running on an 8 or 10 mile run, it's not that much. Maybe 20, 30 seconds of more running. But when you're talking 300, 400 miles, you're adding a lot of running into it. So I've been going slow, making sure that my muscle, skeletal stuff is able to sustain that. And then the heart rate, when I do shorter stuff, I push the running paces a little bit, trying to get myself stronger in the running. So when I'm doing longer stuff, that I can slow the running down, but it's not as huge a drop off. But whatever you do here, your strategy needs to include a lot of walking. Before I tackled Vol State, I was running a half mile, walking a half mile. And I knew that I was going to need to train walking a lot more, because when I got into Vol State the first time, I said, oh, cool. Let's go out and let's run a mile, walk a mile. The next day, I was so sore I could not freaking walk. I did 20 miles of that, and I had done, 2 weeks after a marathon. It was not a big deal. I was so sore I could not move, because the walking was totally different than the running. So spend time on it. You can get your walking paces down and be comfortably moving in the 14, 15 minute range. I know at HOTS this year that Kim Durst and I were rolling along at 16:30 pace through the middle of the night, and it was extremely comfortable to move at that pace. And at HOTS, 15:30, 16-minute pace per mile is kind of getting it. And that includes Vol State too. It's just getting it. Like, that's fast. I know it doesn't sound like fast when we're talking about, running marathons and things like that, but when you're going that long and you're out there 5 and 6 days, 16-minute pace is just getting after it. So, yeah, train your walking.
Always, the question is always asked, how many miles you put in a week for these runs? And reality is, I really don't put that many in. I teach school, so school's in session until almost the end of May. So I get about 50 to 60 miles a week when school's in session. If it's cross country season, I'm probably getting closer to 50. Track season, I get more along the lines closer to 60, because we don't have too many weekend meets, whereas cross country is always on Saturday. During the winter, I'll get some, but you're dealing with cold and wet and all the things that go with winter. So it's just not that much, 7 to 8 miles a day for 5 days a week. One day is usually 2 or 3 miles. And then on weekends, 20 miler, maybe as far as 30 on the weekends. But typically 20 to 24 or somewhere in that neighborhood. It just depends on what I'm doing. And all that. So it's just not a lot of miles, but it's consistent training day in, day out, working on everything I need. And as I get close to the event, I try to do more. Like this year before HOTS, I think the 3 weeks before HOTS this year, I averaged about 90 miles a week, but I was out of school. So I could do that.
Strength training. So that's a question that comes up a lot. Do you do strength training? And I do some, probably not nearly as much as I should. And do you need it for HOTS and Lavs? I don't think you need it. I think it'd be very beneficial. I do body weight. I don't go to the gym. I don't take that time. My strength training routine typically takes me 15 minutes a day when I do it, and I usually do it on average maybe 2 or 3 days a week. I do a little bit of pyramid box jumps where you come off and you land on your feet and bounce a couple of times, 1 or 2 times. I do some quarter squats where I'm working on just building that where that runner's thing is, and I do some quarter lunges where I'm very specific on what I'm doing that affects a running posture. Then I do a little bit of stuff at home with some basic weights I got for upper body, and then on top of that I do just some general core work. But do you need it? I think it's beneficial, especially as you get older, but I don't think it's something you absolutely have to incorporate into your Lavs and HOTS training. Heat training, probably the most interesting part of this whole cycle. If you're doing HOTS, boy, that throws a whole wrinkle in the number. But if you're doing Vol State, you need heat training. If you don't live in a place where you can get much, then freaking get in your car, turn the heater up on your way home from work, max, and just blow hot air. You gotta get used to being hot, and you're going to be hot. And you're probably gonna be sticky too, because Tennessee in July has some bad humidity. But get in there if you got access to a sauna, get in it. HOTS. Oh boy. All right, in 23, I did HOTS. We had upper 80 degree days. We also had a night at 44 degrees, and it was cold. All right, so last year was the first year that it was hot the whole time. Nobody froze to death. So I don't know what to tell you there. Kind of both. You want to be used to going out when it's cool in the mornings, but you also want to be used to getting some good heat training when it's warm during the day. 2024, it was hot. Beginning of a heat wave when we started. We had the first 3 days, I think 94, 96, and like 99 or something like that. It was bad. So yeah, you got to kind of work on both for HOTS and see what the weather throws you. Mental. Probably the biggest thing at HOTS and Lavs is the mental game. Too many people train with music. You're not gonna have music out there. Your headphones are gonna die, your phone's gonna die. You need to put everything down as low as possible for power consumption. All right, so quit training with it. Second, find the most monotonous courses you've ever ran on and do it, and run on roads that have a lot of traffic, or even if it's on a sidewalk. But get used to that traffic noise because it's just a constant refrain. I also highly recommend you do some late night running, because that's a different feel too when you're out there and there ain't nobody in the world out there. It's dark, it's just you. So those mental games there that you have to be able to get through in those races, especially that 3 o'clock in the afternoon when traffic's flying around and just nothing but whom, 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 or 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, there ain't nobody out and it's dead, just you and the crickets. Probably the last thing that you need to worry about and how to train for this is really individual, but sleep deprivation and how much and how long. This becomes something that's very unique to every individual out there. And I think, based on my experience,
you can get better at it with experience and work, but it's just not something that's easy to come by. So how long can you go? How far can you go? How much sleep do you need? Really starts to become an experimentation. For instance, until HOTS 2024, I didn't think I could go more than 32 to 34 hours without sleep. I went 50 hours without sleep. So yeah, I pushed my boundaries and found out that I didn't need sleep that long. And when I say without sleep, I mean without any significant downtime. Like in those 50 hours, there were 2 or 3 20-minute, 15-minute cat naps, but there wasn't any significant downtime. So how you do that and what you need to do really becomes an experimentation, and it's hard to experiment with it until you're in one of those things too. So put thought into what you're going to do, look at your sleep cycles, and try to figure out how long you need to go down. Like when I actually go sleep for a big sleep, I know I need about 3:45 to 4 hours. Anything less than that, I'll just wake up and feel worse. So, but that's come through experimentation. So, you need to work on that. Good luck. Hope I see you out on the course, and hope you smash your goals.